Y News. A family appeals for assistance from the Duterte government after Filipina overseas worker Jakatia Pawa was executed by hanging in Kuwait. Relatives of the slain SAF 44 seek for the filing of formal charges against former President Benigno Aquino III over the MAMASAPANO encounter.
Police Director General Ronald De La Rosa orders a reshuffle among members of the PNP Anti-Illegal Drugs Group and the Anti-Kidnapping Group following a number of controversies involving the two police units. And the government of the Philippines and the National Democratic Front finally signed the ground rules that will accelerate negotiations on comprehensive agreement on social and economic reforms.
Y News begins now. Good evening. The family of Filipina Jakatia Pawa, who was executed in Kuwait today, appeals for assistance for the OFW's children. John Nano will tell us why.
The Pawa family is devastated by the news of the execution of OFW Jakatia Pawa in Kuwait. Jakatia Pawa was executed at 3 in the afternoon today for allegedly killing the 22-year-old daughter of her Arab employer in 2007. It was on April 14, 2008 when the Kuwaiti Criminal Court decided to sentence her to death. According to her brother, Lieutenant Colonel Angelo Pawa, it was the sister herself who called him and relayed the news of her scheduled execution today. The Department of Foreign Affairs says the execution of Jakatia was announced after the family of Pawa's alleged victim refused to accept the blood money offered by the Philippine government in exchange of her life. DFA spokesperson Assistant Secretary Charles Jose says the Kuwaiti government informed them about the scheduled execution only yesterday. Pawa was executed by hanging. Lieutenant Colonel Pawa is requesting authorities to ensure the proper burial of his sister in Kuwait. The family also calls on President Duterte to grant scholarships to her two children who are now orphans. The DFA meanwhile insists that they exhausted all possible means to save the life of the Filipino worker. This includes pleading the victim's family for her life and the hiring of lawyers from the top law firms to defend her in the case.
We have been trying to negotiate the blood money. That's why we have been working on this since 2007. But I think the family refused and requested or demanded the implementation of the death sentence. That's why the Kuwaiti government carried out the death sentence.
The remains of Pawa will be buried in Kuwait in accordance with Islamic traditions. John Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
Relatives of the slain PNP Special Action Force marched to the office of the Ombudsman to appeal for the charging of former President Benigno Aquino III on the MAMASAPANO incident. Monokson will tell us why.
The families of the 44 members of the PNP Special Action Force that died in a MAMASAPANO encounter 2 years ago is crying for justice. They are disappointed on the inaction of the Office of the Ombudsman for not including former President Benigno Aquino III as among those who were charged relative to the incident. A cross that symbolizes sacrifices in seeking justice was carried by the families of the SAF 44. They will appeal to the Office of the Ombudsman that former President Aquino be charged as they believe he is responsible for the blotch operation in MAMASAPANO.
Yung anak ko naman po, binaril na nga pero pinaglaro ang pangkatawan. Tinanggalan ng mata, pinutulan ng braso, tinaga pa ang likod. Nasaan po dito ang human rights? Bakit pumikit ang DOJ? Hindi kami pinagsin. Mas masahol pa ito ang mga kamatayan ng sakot sa IGK ngayon.
Bakit po hanggang ngayon, 2 taon na, wala pa pong nangyayari sa nasabing investigasyon?
Attorney Ferdinand Topacio says it is clear that President Aquino is liable based on reports filed by the PNP and the Senate. The families of SAF 44 filed the complaint last July 2016, but the Ombudsman only filed the case yesterday at the Sandigan Bayan. Relatives of the SAF 44 were saddened that only charges of graft and usurpation were filed against Purisima and Napeñas.
bilisan nyo. Ayusin nyo. In less than a year. Kung maaari ay baka bago pa maglabas ng result ang Truth Commission or yung commission na bubuuin ng Presidente. Pag kayo ay magbabagal-bagal dyan sa Ombudsman, marami kami mga kaso dyan nakapending. Marami. Baka matabunan lang tong mamasapanong ito.
Meanwhile, the SAF-44 relatives are in support of the Truth Commission that President Duterte will form. They say the commission must be composed of credible personalities. Mon Hocson, UNTV News and Rescue, Office of the Ombudsman.
Malacanang ensures it will not interfere with the Independent Commission's reinvestigation on the MAMASAPANO encounter. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
The independent commission that President Rodrigo Duterte will create will come up with its own rules and procedures in reinvestigation on the events connected with the bloody MAMASAPANO encounter on January 25, 2015. According to the statement of presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella, it will perform its investigation without outside intervention. Even President Duterte himself will not be able to intervene in the investigation. However, Malacanang says what is certain is that the rules on due process and fairness would be accorded to everyone concerned, especially to those who will be subjected to the reinvestigation. Yesterday, President Duterte announced his plans of creating an independent body which will look into the events related to the death of the 44 PNP Special Action Force commandos after launching Oplan Exodus to arrest the international terrorist Zulkifli Binhir alias Marwan in Mamasapano, Maguindanao. President Duterte likened it to the Agrava Commission created by former regime of Ferdinand Marcos to investigate the assassination of Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. Now, under the Duterte administration, an independent commission with same concept will investigate on Ninoy's son, former President Benigno Noynoy Aquino, who was the commander-in-chief of the military and police and approved of the failed police operation.
At the end of the year, and we can have the truth. From the time the plan was maybe be hatched, who are the guys who went to President Aquino to talk about this thing, maybe you can call the Embassy of the American, what was your role there, and to whom the money was given.
Lawmakers agree with the creation of the said independent commission.
If the President feels na kulang yung ginawang investigation ng BOI, including the investigation conducted by the Senate, that is always his prerogative.
If they need the transcripts of our hearings here, ibigay namin para hindi na ulit-ulitin.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
Presidential Chief Legal Counsel Attorney Salvador Panelo says the biases set by the former administration on the personalities concerned prompted them to push for the reinvestigation of the Mamasapano encounter. Rosalie Cos is back to tell us why.
As we all know, the previous administration was biased on certain allies that were subjected to investigation. So it's about time we conduct another probe.
This is the statement of Presidential Chief Legal Counsel Attorney Salvador Panelo to answer the question why President Rodrigo Duterte wants to reinvestigate the Mamasapano encounter which killed 44 PNP Special Action Force commandos on January 25, 2015 through the creation of an independent commission. Panelo says it is high time to know the whole truth and hold those who were responsible but protected by the past administration. Meanwhile, Malacanang strongly denies allegations that the issue of reinvestigating the Mamasapano encounter is a diversionary tactics to cover up other controversies hounding the government, such as the Kidnap-SLAY case of a South Korean businessman.
The reason why he made those statements is because of the presence of the victims that made a courtesy call to him and their cry for justice. That is why he made an immediate response to that.
Meanwhile, Senator Richard Gordon has called on the Senate to reopen its probe on the failed MAMASAPANO operation that led to the death of 44 PNP Special Action Forces and other civilians. In his privileged speech before the Senate plenary today, Gordon claimed that the investigation by the Senate and Philippine National Police Board of Inquiry fell short in giving justice to the victims of the incident. He urges the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs, formerly headed by Senator Grace Poe and now chaired by Senator Panfilo Lacson, to continue looking into the matter.
Hindi natin makalimutan at managot yun dapat managot. Hindi ho ako after revenge. There's no such thing. Revenge is not justice, Mr. President. Justice is learning from it and allowing it never to happen again.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales issues a show cause order to the former records officer of the Special Prosecutor's Office. Joanne Nano will tell us why.
Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales orders the former records officer assigned in the Special Prosecutor's Office to explain the alleged delays in the case of the MAMASAPANO encounter, which left 44 members of the PNP Special Action Forces or SAF dead. Morales demands an explanation from a certain attorney Kagat as to why the filing of the case at the Sandigan-Bayan was delayed for almost 7 months. The Ombudsman learned that the deadline of the filing of the case against dismissed Philippine National Police Director General Alan Purisima and retired Special Action Forces Chief Getulio Napeñas was supposed to be in June 2016 but was filed at the Sandigan-Bayan only yesterday.
I gave her a show cause order to answer within 24 hours why she should not be faulted.
The Ombudsman also defends herself from accusations of slow-paced investigation.
Excuse me, sinasabi nila masyadong matagal mag-decide ang Ombudsman. Ano lang ito, respondent is not even an accused. Why don't you look at the accused who are languishing in jail but whose cases remain undecided? Nagagalit na kami kasi ang akala ng mga tao, kami ang nagpapatagal ng hindi.
Meanwhile, the Ombudsman assures that the independent commission that the President seeks to create will not affect the conduct of their investigation. The said commission will be tasked to conduct a thorough investigation into the MAMASAPANO encounter.
Well, there are so many complaints. I'm not offended. I stand by my record. Whatever people say, I always say, look at our records, the records of the Ombudsman. I'm not offended at all.
Joanne Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
An AIDG report suggests that the group of Police Superintendent Rafael Dumlao and SPO3 Ricky Santa Isabel had allegedly taken advantage of the busy schedule of other officials of the anti-illegal drugs group when they abducted and killed Korean businessman Ji Ik-ju. Rosa Licos is back to tell us why.
An investigation report of the anti-illegal drugs group reveals that the police unit has set up an operation after receiving information about a floating shabu laboratory in Zambales. The operation was approved by AIDG Deputy Director for Operations, Police Senior Superintendent Benjamin Acorda, and was called Copland Titanic, to be led by Police Superintendent Rodolfo Gonzalez of the Special Interdiction Unit 4. Based on the approved pre-operation, it was to be held from October 13 to 19 of last year. Included in the standby group were the Special Interdiction 2 led by Police Superintendent Reynaldo Magdaluyo and Special Investigation Unit 2 led by Police Superintendent Rafael Dumlao. However, Superintendent Gonzalez postponed the operation due to Typhoon Lawin.
Yung Zambales area, doon po yung activities ng ating mga operatiba. At wala po kaming operation sa Angeles kung ang pag-uusapan is yung case operation plan Titanic.
The situation was believed to have helped the group of Police Superintendent Dumlao and SPO3 Santa Isabel to commit the crime. Based on the statement of SPO4 Roy Villegas, Dumlao called him for an operation. They went to Camp Crame on the morning of October 18 to report to Dumlao for an operation in Angeles City, which Villegas thought was legitimate. Colonel Ferro says the group of Santa Isabel took advantage of their busy schedule and went on with their illegal operation.
Yung pagsamantala ay isang possibility. Samantala nila na yung tao ay medyo busy. Hindi malayong mangyari yun. Pero siyempre, we are on the process of conducting a more extensive investigation.
Because of the recent developments, Dumlao and Villegas will face charges of grave misconduct and serious neglect of duty, while Santa Isabel will also face kidnapping with homicide. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Police Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa orders a reshuffle among members of the PNP Anti-Illegal Drugs Group and the Anti-Kidnapping Group. Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
PNP Chief Police Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa says he will embark on the internal cleansing within the ranks of the PNP Anti-Illegal Drugs Group and Anti-Kidnapping Group. The so-called internal cleansing in the PNP-AIDG comes after the alleged involvement of some of its members in the KIDNAP-SLAY case. Meanwhile, the AKG will also undergo a similar cleansing due to the slow pace of its investigation into the said case before the lead of Police Superintendent Glenn Dumlao. The general vows to ensure that whoever will lead and be included in the two police units will have no involvement in any anomaly. De la Rosa also notes that it is important for the new member to have discipline, have love for their duty and dedication in serving the public so they could not be blinded by money.
Ulitin natin yung background investigation ng mga tao na background check natin. Pag may mga problema, tanggalin natin.
Anti-Illegal Drugs Group Director Police Senior Superintendent Albert Ferro initially announced the conduct of another character audit within the ranks. This is to prevent rogue cops like SPO3 Ricky Santa Isabel from circumventing the process of getting into the police force.
Continuing yung effort namin sa programa ng ating pamahalaan to get rid of scalawags, misfits, and corrupt officials sa ating hanay.
Meanwhile, the PNP chief also confirmed that like in his case, the president did not accept the resignation of Colonel Ferro due to command responsibility.
Because sir, si Ferro is also tendering his resignation kasi napapahiya na siya sa'yo. Ang sagot naman ni Presidente is, bakit kasalanan mo ba yun? Bakit ka mag-resign? Ang dami mo ng accomplishment na nagawa. Patuloy mo yung trabaho mo.
Leah Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
Region 3 Police Director Aaron Aquino confirms that the Angeles City Chief of Police is already relieved from office. Aga Kakbay will tell us why.
Relieved Angeles City Chief of Police Senior Superintendent Sidney Villaflor is temporarily placed under regional personnel and holding unit following a series of kidnapping and extortion on Korean nationals in Angeles City, Pampanga. Replacing Villaflor is Police Senior Superintendent Jose Hidalgo. PNP Region 3 Director Aaron Aquino says the main reason for Villaflor's removal from post is command responsibility.
Itong mga kapulisan na ngayon ito ay nadisarmahan. Sila ay na-relieve na sa kanilang mga posisyon at in restrictive custody of the Angeles City Police Office. Pati yung Chief of Police na Station 5 and the Deputy Chief of Police were also relieved of their positions.
Aquino further notes that the incident of robbery extortion on Korean nationals in Angeles, Pampanga are not isolated cases.
Hindi isolated to. Kasi kung isolated, it should be one. Ba't nadadagdagan eh? And previously, palagay ko, meron pa nangyayari. Hindi lang nare-report dahil sa takot ng mga Koreano.
Aquino believes that there had been similar cases in the past that had not been reported by victims because of fear. Aquino will meet the Korean community in Angeles City to hear their predicaments and strengthen their cooperation with the authorities. Aga Kakbay, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group nabs the #1 most wanted in Catbalogan City. Grace Casin will tell us why.
The PNP-AIDG DSOU has finally arrested one most wanted person in Catbalogan City, Samar, after hiding for more than a year. The suspect, identified as Augusto Capili Daras, 45, is now facing 5 counts of statutory rape. From Catbalogan, he went to Metro Manila to hide.
Nauli po ito in coordination po ng Catbalogan City Police Station through the help po ng community ng ating mga concerned citizen po. Nakuha po natin siya within 2 weeks period po na operation namin.
The PNP refused to give the details about the victim because of the confidentiality of the case. As he is facing a non-bailable case, the suspect will be immediately transferred to the issuing court, the RTC Branch 27 in Catbalogan City.
Sa ngayon ma'am, dito pa siya, in custody po siya namin. We will go the the regular procedure, the booking, and then temporary custody. And eventually after that po, ita-turn over po natin siya sa issuing court po.
To date, based on the record of PNP-AIDG, the #1 most wanted in the country is still former Congressman Ruben Ecleo Jr., who is facing parricide case with a 2 million peso reward money. Some other wanted persons are facing kidnap, ransom, murder and homicide charges with a reward money of not less than 500,000 pesos. Authorities warned the public not to apprehend or detain any of these individuals but inform authorities of their whereabouts. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
Authorities denied the allegation that they violated the government's self-imposed unilateral ceasefire in the encounter with rebels in the southern Philippines this weekend. Victor Cosare will tell us why.
Ito ay purely law enforcement operation.
This was the response of the North Cotabato Police Provincial Office to the allegation that the military and police violated the government's declaration of a unilateral ceasefire because they attacked a camp of the New People's Army just this weekend. The security forces stressed that they were conducting pursuit operations against a couple of armed men who fired their weapons and took the keys of a truck owned by a company. They said it was not a violation of the unilateral ceasefire.
Unilateral ceasefire ay mandate ng armed forces at saka Philippine National Police to ensure that economic, social, religious activities ay patuloy. At dito sa pamaraan na ito ay talagang ginagawa natin yung mandate para hindi mawala yung tiwala ng taong bayan sa atin.
The operation resulted in a firefight in Makilala, North Cotabato, where one of the 4 suspects, identified as Rojit Ranara, was killed. Further verification reveals that the slain man was a member of the New People's Army, basing on the documents recovered from him and from the account of his sister. Other efforts are still being made to identify and capture the 3 other suspects. Also recovered at the encounter site were high-powered firearms, improvised explosive devices, backpacks, several documents, and extortion letters signed by one of the spokesmen of the rebel group.
Yung extortion ay talagang gawain nila, no? Extortion, at kung hindi mapasunod ay takutin, kung hindi mapasunod ay susunugin yung kanilang kagamitan.
On the other hand, authorities deny that 8 soldiers were killed in the firefight. Victor Cosare, UNTV News and Rescue, Davao City.
Next in Y News. The first batch of martial law victims expect to receive partial reparation in the second quarter of 2017.
The Commission on Elections supports giving government subsidy to political parties during campaigns.
Y News will be right back.
Y News would like to thank the following.
The Government Peace Panel and the National Democratic Front has approved the ground rules to speed up talks on socio-economic reforms. The signing was done during the ongoing peace negotiations in Rome, Italy. Among the resolutions is to form bilateral teams from both sides that will continue with the meetings even after the third round of talks is over. Also, Philippine Chief Negotiator Secretary Silvestre Bello III said they have also agreed for a request to take out the name of NDFP political consultant Jose Maria Sison from the list of U.S. tagged terrorists. Meanwhile, Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno today reveals that the country's rating in the Global Rule of Law Index has significantly slumped last year. Roderick Mendoza will tell us why.
The global perception on rule of law in the country has been greatly affected by the spate of unresolved killings. Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno reveals that based on the Rule of Law Index of the World Justice Project, the Philippines was ranked 60th in 2014. It improved to 51st in 2015 but slumped to 70th place last year. The Rule of Law Index is currently the benchmark for global perception-based studies on the administration of justice in each country.
We have to face the reality of the daily accounts of unsolved killings, many of them committed brazenly with public warnings against drug pushing or addiction. It is not surprising, therefore, that the perception of the rule of law in our country has swung from marked improvement to a downgrade.
Sereno says the judiciary must take this as an indication of serious loss of trust in the country's criminal justice system. She calls on all the three branches of government and the independent constitutional bodies to reflect how they have been discharging their duties.
The government pillars of criminal justice, that is, the judiciary, the Department of Justice and its attached agencies, including the National Prosecution Service and the National Bureau of Investigation, and the Philippine National Police, must come together to ponder on what kinds of genuine changes are required to bring about real justice.
On the part of the judiciary, the Chief Justice says people should not be confused that their role is to render judgment based on evidence presented by the police and the prosecution.
If the evidence is weak, the judge has no choice but to acquit the accused and must not be blamed. I also ask you, before you accuse a judge of undue delay, to remember that many times the judge cannot help but postpone the case if the prosecutor or policeman is absent.
Sereno also warns those who are trying to weaken the judiciary.
Any effort to weaken the judiciary is to weaken our country. We can only ensure protection of the rights of every citizen, including those in the business community, if we have a judiciary that is truly independent and strong.
Despite this, the Chief Justice asked the people to continue to believe in the rule of law, assuring them that the efforts to reform the judiciary has been relentless. Roderick Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Makati City.
The Human Rights Victims Claims Board starts processing the distribution of reparation for the first batch of martial law victims. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Compensations for martial law victims under the regime of former President Ferdinand Marcos are to be distributed in the second quarter of 2017. The first batch is for 4,000 eligible claimants. Most of them are already recognized by the Bantayog ng Mga Bayani Foundation and the Court of Hawaii. Human Rights Victims Claims Board Chairperson Lina Sarmiento says they will apply the point system on the distribution of money. 10 points are for those killed or died or missing, 6 to 9 points for those who experienced torture, 3 to 5 points for detained or jailed, and 1 to 2 points for other violation such as sexually offended or those whose properties were sequestered. The board estimates each point at 20,000 pesos but will distribute only 50% of the total amount of claim.
Kaya hindi natin pwedeng ibigay ang buo dahil kailangan nating malaman kung ilang puntos ang ibibigay natin pagkatapos nating madesisyonan lahat ng mga kaso.
The Claims Board is considering bank transfer to make the distribution easier. The board has already reviewed more than 30,000 out of the more than 75,000 applicants. Sarmiento assures that the names of the 4,000 claimants will be announced and will do their best to reach them. The government has allotted 10 billion pesos for the claims. The distribution must be done before the end of the Claims Board's term on May 12, 2018. Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, supports a measure that seeks to provide government subsidy during elections. Joyce Balancho will tell us why.
The Senate Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation discussed today the proposed bill by Senator Franklin Drilon that seeks to provide government subsidy to the accredited political parties during elections. Under his proposed bill, funds of legitimate parties will be augmented to help in their operational expenses and recruitment of members.
We have filed this act strengthening the political party system in our country in the hope that we can have the basic framework, as you have mentioned, in order that we can strengthen our political party system here and make it an effective tool for people's participation in governance.
The Commission on Elections will choose the parties based on political representation, organizational strength, mobility, and track record. COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon supports the bill but suggests that proper parameters be put up in selecting political parties. She says in other countries, government gives subsidies to parties that promote gender equality.
If we add it to the criteria that a political party that fills at least 40% of candidates who are women will get a certain amount or percentage from the subsidy fund, will encourage a lot of political parties to field women candidates and achieve gender equality in the end.
If enacted, this will also help COMELEC in monitoring and checking the campaign expenditures of candidates. Aside from state subsidy, Drilon also wants to limit the voluntary contributions of donors to 1 million pesos each. The bill also seeks to penalize politicians who change affiliations immediately after winning the elections. Electoral Reforms and People's Participation Committee Chair Senator Laila De Lima says the measure will be discussed further in the technical working group. Joyce Balancho, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate of the Philippines.
Newly installed Ambassador to China Chito Santa Romana says that pushing forward economic cooperation is particularly important at present. Marge Pelayo will tell us why.
New Philippine Ambassador to China Jose Santiago Chito Santa Romana explains that the basic thrust of his mission is to improve the friendship and cooperation between the two countries. The ambassador has listed several benefits that the Philippines will gain from healthy bilateral ties.
On the one hand, you have the fishermen of Zambales along the coast that is able now to fish again in Scarborough Shoal. On the other hand, you have the farmers of Mindanao that is now able to sell more bananas, more pineapples to China. And then the other immediate impact is, of course, tourism. The figures have been doubling. The figures of Chinese tourists have been doubling since July. But beyond that, more trade, more investment, and also the big infrastructure project.
When asked about how to make use of the $24 billion investment pledges during President Duterte's visit to China last October, Santa Romana says there is an effort to fast-track the fund and come up with a list of projects and start the ball rolling in terms of feasibility studies. He explains that the $24 billion fund is divided into $15 billion in investment deals and $9 billion in 6 of which in concessional loans and 3 in Bank of China credit facility.
Bank of China will hold a roadshow in March here to try to match Filipino, SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, with their Chinese counterparts.
The ambassador stresses that his job is to facilitate both sides in order to come up with contracts so that the two countries can continue with the feasibility studies and the bidding process.
There will be shovel-ready projects before the end of the year. And this is why we expect that around 1 to 2 million jobs will be provided by all these, if all these projects can be brought into line and can be in the pipeline as soon as possible. This is the goal.
The ambassador is no stranger to China as he lived and worked in the country for 2 decades until he retired in 2010. Marge Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Amid controversies surrounding the government's anti-drug war, the Philippine National Police declares 13 districts in Masbate and Bicol as drug-free. Bernard Dadis will tell us why.
13 of the 20 districts in the city of Masbate are declared drug-free by the Philippine National Police or PNP and the Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council or BADAC. The 13 districts were placed under the PNP's Oplan Tukhang and Project Double Barrel in the previous months. The PNP Masbate also coordinated with barangay officials to make drug personalities under the drug watch list of the barangay surrender. To date, there are about 900 drug personalities who surrendered to authorities in the city. Police Superintendent Ruben Padua Jr. admits that PNP Masbate is having difficulty enforcing the anti-drug program in other barangays. Padua says officials in these barangays may have been involved in drugs or drug protectors themselves. Another reason Padua says is politics. Meanwhile, the number 1 drug personality in the watch list of the PNP Masbate was killed in a buy and bust operation. He was identified as Elmer alias LL of Barangay Kinamaligan. Also killed was his companion Jose Romero Santander, 51 years old of Lanao del Norte. The police conducted a month of surveillance in the house rented by the suspect. The top suspect alias LL's illegal drug supply come from outside Masbate. Bernard Dadis, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Different groups of child rights advocates have formed an alliance to oppose the proposed measure to lower the minimum age of criminal liability for children. Brian De Paz will tell us why.
Bills that seek to lower the minimum age of criminal responsibility in youth offenders from 15 years old to 9 are still pending in Congress. With this, the Salinlahi for Children's Concerns and other child rights and welfare institutions have launched a move to oppose these proposed bills. The group says the government should not regard youth offenders as criminals. They say wayward children are victims of poverty and state neglect. A child who gets caught stealing is enough proof that poor children have been condemned miserably in a condition where they need to commit crimes in order to survive.
Yung protection, yung prevention, noong pagkakasadlak ng mga bata sa kriminalidad, meron niyang malalim na ugat sa ating lipunan. Kaya nananawagan kami, bigyan ng trabaho ang mga magulang. Itaas ang sahod nila.
Marami namang mga bata kami kinikater na CICL who really transform into a better person na talagang nag-succeed sa buhay nila.
Only 2% of the total crimes reported sa datos ng PNP ay committed by children. So makikita mo pa lang doon sa datos, hindi siya ganun kalaking porsyento.
The group also questions a report that shows child labor in the country has already decreased.
Ito ay dahil sa hindi paborableng economic situation kung saan kahit mga magulang ng mga bata ay walang trabaho, kaya kahit itong mga batang murang edad pa lang ay napipilitan ng maghanap ng trabaho.
The group urges the government to prioritize crafting responsive programs and policies that will address poverty. They believe that such programs will result in job generation for poor families. Brian De Paz, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The House leadership criticizes some officials of the Department of Transportation due to the agency's plans and projects. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez questioned the officials of the Department of Transportation who attended the hearing in the lower house regarding the Memorandum of Agreement for the construction of the Common Station or Unified Station of MRT and LRT in Quezon City. In the hearing, the House Speaker criticized the agency for allegedly favoring business tycoons than the riding public.
Yung technical nyo, that is a justification doon sa gusto nyo mangyari. What we want is comfort and convenience of the passengers. Was determined through a technical and engineering study.
Alvarez says comparing the 2009 original plan of a common station and the current plan of unified station, the government will only spend 700 million pesos if the common station will be built in front of the annex building of SM North EDSA. The common station is also more convenient to passengers as they do not need to walk far to ride another train. But based on last week's signed Memorandum of Agreement, the government will have to allocate around 2.8 billion pesos for the new location of a unified station to be situated between the two big malls.
Yung win-win solution na sinasabi nila, yung interest ng mga negosyante.
Definitely, there will be a deeper investigation. No? Pag tinuloy nyo yan.
The House Minority Group plans to file complaints against the officials of DOTR over the controversial unified station. As to the other contracts entered into by the DOTR, the House leadership says the concession agreements for the privatization of maintenance and for the operation of airports and railways are anomalous. But according to DOTR, they are just abiding by the provisions of Republic Act No. 7718 or the Build, Operate, Transfer Law.
The concession agreement itself is the franchise. Oh! That's under the Build, Operate, and Transfer Law, Mr. Speaker. Talaga?
Speaker Alvarez says they will monitor the agreements, especially now that there are existing problems and complaints on the services of airport and trains. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA personnel conducted clearing operations on several roads in Pasay City. Bernard Dadis will tell us why.
Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA personnel drove away illegal vendors along Buendia Avenue earlier this morning. They also towed vehicles parked on roadside of Buendia Avenue. The driver of a delivery truck tried to plead but was ignored by the MMDA.
Truck ng store to. Dito lang talaga yung space namin magpa-park. So hindi na kami tumatagal, 20 o 30 minutes. Pagtapos ng baba, umaalis na rin yung truck. So dapat pagbibigyan nila yung ganyan, mga ganyang ay priority nila yung mga ganyang may negosyo.
Kasi alam nyo, ang problema natin dito, sa tagal na pinapabayaan, sa tagal na pinagbibigyan, sa tagal na wala rin silang mapuntahan, yung mali nagiging tama. Ngayon po trabaho natin, gawing at least to make them realize na mali yung ginagawa nila.
Along with the MMDA are personnel of the Ombudsman who help in determining erring government officials who are neglecting their duties.
Para malaman nila na kayong mga opisyal ng gobyerno, kung sino man kayo, mga personnel ng gobyerno, pag hindi nyo napapatupad din at tinutulungan yung pamahalaan sa pagtupad ng batas, diretso namin kayong kakasuhan.
Meanwhile, the MMDA plans to hire new traffic constables who will monitor and manage traffic on roads. MMDA officer in charge Thomas Orbos says they need 2,000 new traffic enforcers who will replace erring and abusive traffic constables.
I will outsource traffic enforcement and I will just leave the good ones to the agency. Yung good ones should be rewarded, the bad ones should go.
Aside from this, the MMDA will also augment people from barangays and AFP reservists to help in traffic management. Bernard Dadis, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Coming up, the government of the United Kingdom introduces a bill to start the process of exiting the European Union.
And UNTV correspondents and volunteers in Perth, Australia take basic first aid training.
More from Y News after this break.
Y News would like to thank the following: Inex Industrial Incorporated, Medical Depot, Satex Communication Center, E5 Enterprise, East Trans Line Philippines Incorporated, JPM Medical.
Preliminary steps are underway towards the United Kingdom's Brexit from the European Union. Jovic Bermas will tell us why.
The British government will introduce straightforward legislation within days seeking Parliament's approval to trigger Britain's divorce with the European Union.
But this will be a straightforward bill. It's not about whether or not the UK should leave the European Union. That decision has already been made by the people of the United Kingdom.
Earlier, the UK Supreme Court ruled that Prime Minister Theresa May must give Parliament a vote before she can invoke Article 50 of the EU's Lisbon Treaty to begin 2 years of exit talks.
The purpose of this bill is simply to give the government the power to invoke Article 50 and begin the process of leaving the European Union.
The UK's highest judicial body dismissed the government's argument that Prime Minister Theresa May could simply use executive powers, known as royal prerogative, to invoke Article 50 of the EU's Lisbon Treaty and begin 2 years of divorce talks. Britain's opposition Labour Party said it would not block Article 50 being triggered, but that it would try to amend the legislation. Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue, London, United Kingdom.
U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to sign several executive orders restricting immigration from Syria and 6 other Middle Eastern or African countries. In addition to Syria, Trump's orders are expected to temporarily restrict access to the United States for most refugees. Another order will block visas from being issued to those from Iraq, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. The restrictions on refugees are likely to include a multi-month ban on admissions from all countries until the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security can make the vetting process more rigorous. The Republican president is expected to sign the orders at the headquarters of Department of Homeland Security, whose responsibilities include immigration and border security. A couple is overwhelmed seeing their healthy baby in normal delivery. Nicole Reyes will tell us why.
Melbourne mother Natasha Corrigan welcomes a big bundle of joy on Tuesday with the birth of her 6.06 kilogram baby boy, Brian Jr.
Overwhelmed. I dreamed of a little fat baby. I've always wanted a little fat baby and I've got a big one.
According to local media, Corrigan was told her baby would be on the heavier side and delivered Brian Jr. naturally.
I think I was in a bit of shock, because the birth was natural and I only had gas, so I was still in a bit of shock just from that.
It was a bit scary this morning, and now everyone's fine, partner's fine, and my baby's fine.
According to local media, Brian Jr. was born at 40 weeks and 5 days and could be the heaviest baby born in Victoria. Nicole Reyes, UNTV News and Rescue, Melbourne, Australia.
Germany's Bundesliga becomes the first major soccer league in the world to use video assistant referees. Meanwhile, England is confident despite being trashed by India in the 2020 series. Aga Kaakbay tells us why.
In cricket, England fast bowler Timal Mills says his team is confident to face India in the 3-match 2020 series despite losing both the Test and One-Day International Series against the hosts. India won the ODI series 2-1 and pounded England 4-0 in the Test match format.
with our batting lineup, we can hit any attack out the park or chase down any attack. So as a bowling unit, we'll just look to be aggressive and take as many wickets as we can, and then restrict later on.
The first match of the series will take place in Kanpur on Thursday. England meets India in the 3 T20 matches in Kanpur, Nagpur and Bangalore over the next week. In golf, Northern Irish Rory McIlroy is out of action for another month due to a rib injury. He is now enduring after this month's South Africa Open. He has already missed the Abu Dhabi Championship. He also pulls himself out of next week's Dubai's Desert Classic. The world's number 2 aims to come back at the WGC Mexico Championship on March 2, more than 6 weeks after he fractured his rib on January 13. And in football, Germany's Bundesliga and the DFB, or the German Football Association, confirms they will introduce video assistant referees, or VAR, at the start of next season in August. The Bundesliga, following positive results of testing the system during the first half of the season, decides to become the first major soccer league in the world to use VAR. Video assistant referees were first officially used at December's FIFA World Cup held in Yokohama and Osaka, Japan. VAR uses video footage and a headset for communication that reviews decision made by the head referee in a football game. Aga Kaakba, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
It may seem like David versus Goliath, but Australian boxer Jeff Horn is confident that he will win against boxing icon Manny Pacquiao. Nina Bascon will tell us why.
It will be a very tough fight. I've watched Manny Pacquiao since I first started boxing, and he's an absolute legend in the sport. He moves well. I expect him to punch hard, and it's going to be difficult, but I'm ready for the challenge.
Australian boxer Jeff Horn is geared up for the big challenge posed by the fist of Filipino boxing legend Manny Pacquiao in an upcoming bout on April 23, 2017. Horn is confident that he can topple world champion Pacquiao despite the latter's veteran status.
I think my size and my youth is probably my biggest advantage over Manny Pacquiao. He's just that little bit older, even though he's probably a little bit wiser as well because he's been around for longer, but I think that hunger in me is going to get that win.
The boxer says obviously he is younger and quicker than Pac-Man.
I think it will just make me a lot more popular on the world scene of boxing, and not just Australia. I'm more well known here, but it will be great international exposure with this fight.
Horn's trainer-manager Glenn Rushton has high hopes that his bet will be able to clinch the title from Pacquiao, and this will give Horn popularity not just in Australia but also in the whole world. Rushton says other details of the match between Pacquiao and Horn are still being discussed, but the Australian boxer is prepared once the match is all set.
Agreed to terms on our side. I understand that, of course, Manny Pacquiao has to agree on his side with his managers, so they will agree, obviously, on terms. We've already agreed, so it's really now just a matter of locking in the venue and then, of course, tidying up the final details with Manny. But we believe, yes, that all shouldn't be a problem.
Heavy puncher Horn could be locked in for a headstrong bout against the boxing legend Manny Pacquiao on April 23 this year, the biggest fight in Australian sports history. Nina Bascon, UNTV News and Rescue, Brisbane, Australia.
The Members Church of God International San Pedro Laguna chapter has taken initiative to once again conduct a bloodletting activity. Leslie Longboen will tell us why.
Around 65,000 blood bags are required annually to suffice the need of people who have to undergo blood transfusion. These include people involved in accidents, those who underwent operations and acquired diseases during rainy season where the number of dengue cases in different parts of the country is high. However, the Philippine Blood Center says only 30,000 blood bags are collected from different areas yearly.
Malaki pong kakulangan natin, mga daan-daan po namin na nakukuha. Usually 1 or 2 to 3 days po lang yan.
In order to help ease the shortage of blood in the country and with knowledge of the benefits of blood donation, the Members Church of God International San Pablo Laguna chapter took initiative to once again conduct a bloodletting activity. Around 70 blood bags were donated by the group.
Siyempre, masayang-masaya ako. Kahit masakit. Sa una lang naman masakit. Itong pagdodonate ng dugo ay makakatulong na makasagip ng buhay.
Masarap po sa pakiramdam kasi po naiisip ko po na yung buhay na ibinigay sa akin ng Diyos ay maibahagi ko sa iba. Yung kalakasan ng pangangatawan, yung kagandahan ng dugong nasa sa akin, kung maililipat sa katawan ng ibang tao, na lalakas din po sila tulad ng nararamdaman ko.
Meanwhile, PBC is thankful for the continuous support of the Members Church of God International, which is one of the groups that donate the most number of blood bags to the center.
Kay Brother Eli po at kay Brother Daniel, kami po nagpapasalamat po kami sa inyong ahensya sa walang sawang pagtulong sa amin. Ang dating daan po ang isa sa pinakamaraming na naibigay na dugo para sa taon-taon nating selebrasyon.
Leslie Lombowen for Serbisyong Kasangbahay.
UNTV News and Rescue volunteers are now equipped with the basic skills necessary in time of emergencies. Eileen Siliano will tell us why.
The correspondents and volunteers of UNTV News and Rescue Team in Perth, Australia, have received their certificate of attainment for successfully completing a first aid course on January 14, 2017. The news team underwent critical training on cardiopulmonary resuscitation, basic emergency life support, and first aid. The training was administered by CBD College, one of Australia's nationally recognized registered training organizations. Prior to the actual training, each of the volunteers underwent an online lecture as a prerequisite to the hands-on course. UNTV volunteers are pleased to be equipped with the necessary trainings as they are now learned in basic life-saving skills.
Kami rin, kaya na-inspire kami na sumali dito sa training nito sa first aid para matuto din kami at makabahagi sa layunin ni Kuya Daniel na makatulong sa mga kapwa sa pamamagitan nga nitong tulong muna bago balita.
Malaking bagay na laging sinasabi ni Kuya Daniel na tulungan yung imbis na mauna yung balita, dapat tulungan muna yung mga nangangailangan ng tulong. Yun po ang pinakamaganda sa lahat na kakaiba rin na tulungan muna yung kapwa natin dahil ito ay mabuti at susunod na yung balita.
While UNTV researcher Shirley De Lieva recognizes the benefit of the training in her personal life.
Ay apply natin yung natutunan sa course na ito, lalo na kung may emergency sa bahay natin or sa mga kapitbahay natin. Malaking bagay po ito.
CBD College has congratulated the team for a job well done during the training. Eileen Siliano, UNTV News and Rescue, Perth, Australia.
Colorful lanterns grow across China and heat up the atmosphere before an important festival. Dulce Alarcon will tell us why.
As spring festivals just around the corner, lantern fairs that are being held across China help heat up the festive atmosphere in the cold winter. Harbin, the provincial capital of northeast China's Heilongjiang province, is a must-go for people who enjoy cold weather and ice sculptures. Harbin Ice and Snow World, where all architectures were built by ice transported from the Songhua River, receives an average of 20,000 visitors each day on its 800,000 square meters icy wonderland. Besides appreciating the colorful ice lanterns, visitors can also have fun sliding down the world's longest ice slide. In the waterside town Wujian, located in Tongxiang City in East China's Zhejiang province, visitors can enjoy a wide variety of lanterns while strolling along the famous scenic town. A lantern group that reflects the year of the rooster consists a total of 151 rooster lanterns, with the largest rooster-shaped lantern being 6 meters high and surrounded by small chickens. The 31st China Tsinghua River Lantern Fair opened in Grand Bawan Temple in Nanjing, East China's Jiangsu province on Monday, where visitors can appreciate modern lantern show in the renowned historical site. Visitors can also take part in multiple cultural activities to experience the upcoming Chinese Lunar Year in Nanjing. The Lantern Fair will last until February 14. Dulce Alarcon, UNTV News and Rescue, Jilin, China.
Collectors and jewelers flock to Japan's biggest jewelry expo. Nina Armilio will tell us why.
Blinking zirconium tiaras, engagement ring boxes equipped with spy cams, and diamond-dusted hourglasses are some of the eye-catching items showcased among more than 1,000 jewelry booths at Japan's biggest jewelry expo that started on Tuesday. Some jewelers took a step further to help make special occasions more memorable, like the Toku Corporation that showcased a battery-operated tiara embellished with 610 lead-lit zirconium made to blink in 14 different ways. The tiara, which costs 1.3 million yen or approximately $11,500 US, was designed to draw more attention to the bride on her wedding day.
結婚式で、やはりティアラというものをつけていただいているんですが、やはり光ってないと。女性はいつも輝いてほしいということから、この光るティアラというものを開発してました。
Another company decided to make the event before the wedding memorable. Box design company Sankyo created an engagement ring box equipped with a spy cam to capture the expression of the proposee when the big question is popped. The head of the company, Naoki Morimatsu, said fewer people were buying engagement rings, so he wanted to add an element of surprise to the supposedly fading trend. The box is able to record 20 minutes worth of footage and can connect to a video playing book titled Proposal Story, also designed by the company.
ちょっとびっくりしちゃいますよね。カメラがあることに気づきますから。
Rainbow Diamond LLC exhibited shimmering hourglasses filled with cut diamonds. The hourglasses come in all 12 types of birthstones and cost as high as 8 million yen, approximately $70,000 US. Each hourglass measures about 10 minutes depending on the room's temperature.
普段アクセサリーあまり身につけないんですけれども、すごく優雅なちょっと心が豊かになるようなそんな感じがします。
The Jewelry Expo will be held until Thursday, January 26. Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Those are the reasons behind the news, January 25, 2017. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Darlene, Basingan.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Thank you for watching Why News.